I am the Lazy Fish Tanner. I thought that it would be useful, since I did my last fish leather tanning class in person, but I felt like that I could do an online video and that would help a lot of people who were not able to attend my class. Since I'm really committed to fish leather and to that process, I'm getting some fish skins ready for rabbit stick, and I thought it would be useful to try to share some of this information. There might be a fish tanner actually at rabbit stick teaching the class, and I always feel like it's good to get lots of information from lots of different teachers, because everyone has their own strategy and methods for doing this. And I'm just going to teach you a little bit of the basics. Some of the items that I feel like people really need to have, first of all, is a plastic bucket. You're going to probably need, depending on like what method you do, you're going to probably need 2 or 3 of these. You definitely want to have it with a lid, because fish skin is smelly. The other thing you're going to need is some clothes that you really just don't care if they sort of smell like fishy. I've discovered that using an apron is very helpful. You need to pick tools for this first part of the process. I'm just going to kind of go through my tools as we go along, right? And some of the tools you might consider using. Again, I taught a class on this recently, and so I have these plastic paint scrapers. I feel like plastic paint, I know we don't really love plastic, but because the ocean is just so full of it and it just doesn't biodegrade. But I actually feel like these are quite useful. But what was really interesting is in the class when I taught it, I tried something that I hadn't done before, but I thought was really interesting is I used clamshells. So I gathered these on the coast of Maine and also like Oregon. I think most of these though I got in Maine. And so so you just, it might have been Maine. I don't really remember where I got these. So anyway, they were in my house and I thought, well, these are bone. And originally, you know, people used bone tools. There is like something like a slate knife that I've heard about that is actually the best thing to use. So anyway, when we were in the class, people tried using these and they tried using these, and actually phenomenally better. These were much better. So I feel like bone tools are, it's really interesting. But what I love about clamshells is they have this like nice little curve on it. And when you're scraping, it makes it easier, but it's a little more easier on the skin. Okay, and then of course you're gonna need a nice table to do this on. I kind of prefer the fold-up tables because they're washable and disposable, and if they get kind of gross, you can get rid of them. Some of my fish tanners are really into the extremely natural way of doing this, and I think that's a wonderful idea for doing it in a natural environment. I'm kind of doing this in my house. So you can use a fold-up table, and then you can cover it in plastic wrap. I'm not a real big fan of plastic. So you don't have to do it with plastic, but I wanted to show you this, right? So you can take cardboard and put it under your table, and then you can cover it with plastic, and then it like kind of makes the mess easy to remove and easy to get rid of if you're doing this in your home. You could definitely do this out on a rock in a forest, and that's probably the way most fish leather was created. That's definitely like one of the more easy cleanups, but I definitely feel like leaving rotting fish parts and scales is probably, I guess it's fine, but because it's going to biodegrade, but it's going to kind of stink and it's going to draw in other animals. So think about that before you do it. You're going to need some fish skin. Now I got these fish skin from a sushi place. I do not claim that these are not farm raised or anything like that, but the skin was going to be thrown away, and I feel good about salvaging it. I've done shark skin before, and shark skin is really an interesting tanning, but I don't really like it as much as I do like salmon. I feel like salmon and some of these other ones like halibut are great because they're better for clothing. They come out softer. Shark skin actually has denticles, which is like a scale in it that is sort of like almost like a sandpaper. And in fact, shark skin was the original sandpaper used before there was sandpaper. So anyway, I always feel like, getting fish skin is a great thing if you can get it when it's going to be thrown out, because then you can make it into something useful. There has been like a fish skin industry for a long time in Iceland. And actually a lot of the things that people think are snake skin, made of snake skin, are actually fish skin because they look pretty similar. I always feel like it's important to acknowledge the life that's being taken to create your project, right? So I feel like, salmon, I think it was like tuna, they did like some research study on tuna, and there can be tuna that live, like 20 years, right? And so maybe even longer. But, I feel like it's important to understand, like, farm-raised salmon is usually harvested not that many years at all. But like tuna or some of these older fishes, can live a very long time in the wild. And so, but even a farm-raised salmon had a life, and I think it's important to acknowledge the life that's been taken and express gratitude for that life, because otherwise you wouldn't have your project, and to also be conscientious of the resources you're using to tan the skin. Because some of the other things that you're going to need are plants, or teas, or things that basically come from the earth. Like, I'm going to teach you the natural way of doing this. A lot of the leather industry has used a lot of toxic chemicals to try to make this process easier, because man has a propensity to want to be lazy, right? We just want to be economical, and we want to be really efficient, and we tend to introduce terrible chemicals into the environment in the name of that laziness. So, but we are not going to do this. I am a lazy fish tanner, but I do feel like it's important to acknowledge and understand the benefits of doing things the natural way, and to try to avoid using things that would be toxic to the environment. And I definitely feel like there's gradations to toxicity, right? So one of the methods that I'll be doing includes black tea. Black tea, I'm sure, is not always harvested organically, and so I'm sure that there's a level of toxicity there. But then if you get into like chemtan leather, then that's a whole nother level, right? So I just think it's important to, like, some people feel very strongly to have the least amount of effect on the world as possible, and I always feel like that's great, right? Big advocate of that. I don't always do that, but I feel like that if you're going to make a decision, make an educated decision and understand what it is that you're doing. I believe this is salmon. I think this is some kind of carp, and I'm not sure if this is halibut. I love this skin because it's white. And then this huge, freaking huge, beautiful skin, I'm pretty sure it's halibut, but I'm not sure. And they just kind of give it to me in a big bundle. I love it when I can get like a full big sheet like this. This is not common. But man, when you can get sheets like this of just a straight skin, especially, I think this is the biggest skin I've ever seen. Then this can really be used for a lot of different things. Watch bands, vests, skirts, clothing, all kinds of stuff. A lot of shoes were made from fish skin. In fact, fish skin was what originally shoes were made out of, and they judged distance by the number of shoes it took to get somewhere. So anyway, I really like when I can get these kinds of skins, but a lot of times you'll get like a little one. I think little ones are worthy as well, because, you could make something out of this, like a knife sheath. Right? You can make knife sheath out of this. Even stuff, just little, but if, the bigger you can get, the better, because then you can like do more with it. So anyway, I feel like the most common skin that I see is like a salmon skin. And I really love working with salmon. Salmon's actually a really beautiful fish. Much more colorful in the water than it is with us. A lot of the tropical fish are anyway, or ocean fish are more colorful when they're alive. So anyway, but a lot of times I'll get something like this one, you know, it's got like holes in it and stuff like that. So you always want to like look for the best one that you can pick and start with that one first. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and flush a couple of these. And I'm going to show you how to do this. This is the carp one. So first I'm going to, hang on, I got to move my mic here so it's out of the way. So I'm going to kind of just, I feel like with the clamshell, it works really well if you can pull towards you. Now for some people, I have friends of mine that think that this is the most disgusting thing they've ever seen. Personally, in the primitive skills movement, I've done far more disgusting things than this. I've actually done deer. I've skinned a deer and started the tanning process on that hide. I actually never finished that hide. I need to finish it out. I think it would be interesting to bark tan that hide. So you want to flesh this off so you can see that the flesh is coming off of this pretty well. So you get layers of flesh, right? You get this like kind of a muscly layer, and then you kind of get down into this kind of like a white, it's almost like a fibrous little layer. And you actually need to try to get even deeper. Now, if you have your own fish, the whole fish, the process for this is fantastically easier, right? But just remember, in this tanning process, the more of this kind of like thick, fleshy stuff that you get off, when you go to the softening phase, when we get to the end, because there's, you know, this fleshing phase, and then you tan it and then dry it, and you go through like several different kind of like phases. The softening phase is so much easier if you spend a good bit of time in this phase. One of the things I don't like about the skin is this little hole right there. That's kind of disappointing because it's kind of, yeah, it's a hole. Darn it. And I really like this. I'm gonna finish this one anyway. And look at these scales. This is so cool. This is actually gonna make a really pretty hide, even though it has a hole in it. And I'm gonna totally do it anyway. So then you have to scale it. And look at these amazing scales. I love the skin. I bet you this is a carp of some kind. And you know, I feel like with these fish that are like have these big scales, they make such a pretty hide, right? The problem with this one is it's got a hole in it, but I feel like that it's worthy of me, worthy of doing still. So I'm gonna pull all these scales off. Now, some people, what they'll do, and by the way, these little scales, in some countries, they make them into pieces of art. So you can actually use the scales for things. I guess I could put it in my compost if I wanted. So see, you can take this and just kind of rip those scales off with the shell. Look at that, so beautiful. Oh my gosh, look how pretty that is. Even with the hole in it, I'm gonna keep it because I just think that's so pretty. I'm curious as to how it will turn out. You know, it's always an adventure when you're trying to figure out what to do. Oh my gosh, these scales are cool. You know, I actually saw some Filipino jewelry, and they had made flowers out of these scales. It was really cool. I always find it fascinating in these, especially like it seems like in third world countries, people take their natural resources and they just say, hey, what can I make with that? And seems like I just see that people being so ingenious with things and not throwing things away just because they're not useful for what they're doing. I mean, I guess that happens with different people. It's not true all the time. But anyway, you take all of this off. And you could keep these scales if you really want to do that. And take all these scales off. So normally you'd probably have to scrape the scales off and they'd be much smaller than this. This little hide just has, I mean, inordinately larger scales. I've never seen scales this big on a fish that I've fleshed. So you scrape them all off, right? And we're nowhere near done with this process. I mean, in my fish tanning class, it took people, you know, they're kind of beginning. It took them like 4 hours to get through the first part. Oh, that's great. Great, great, great. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back over. And I'm going to try to work this down a little bit. And I keep digging at it. And you know, it's really amazing. A lot of people feel like fish skin is so flimsy, right? And what I'm telling you, some of these skins, they're just so tough, right? So just take a look, okay? So you can see like we're getting onto this fibrous layer. Now, I'm telling you, you can stop here if you want, but I swear, oh, I promise, whatever you want to say, that if you don't dig off a little more, when you go to the softening phase, it's going to be harder, right? You're going to end up doing this on a rock or something else, which is fine, right? You could totally do that. Okay? I keep digging. Love this bone tool. Oh my gosh, I'm in love with clamshells. I'm like never gonna look at clamshells on the ocean the same since my class. You know, I always feel like I learn something in every class that I teach. And you learn something, and I think from the people in the class, because I feel like it's like, you know, every person in the class is a teacher as well. So I'm just gonna, because this has a slice in it, it's going to make it easier if I separate. Now, these are going to be two smaller skins, right? But look how pretty that is. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, I just can't wait to see. I have to ask them what that is. I wish I could get a skin that's, you know. Okay, so I wish I could get a skin that was bigger of that. So if you have your own fish that you can flesh, this whole process is easier. But unfortunately, you know, unless you're like an avid fisher person, yeah, I don't like to say fisherman because it's not gender neutral. But like, you know, if you're not an average fisher person, then, you know, you don't really have like a ton of fish skin. This looks pretty good. I'll probably have to do a little more softening on that one. But I want to kind of get through this. This one's still got some meat, and just remember, the more you do this, the easier the softening phase is going to be, and you really got to dig. Dig, dig, dig. Now, I did see someone in my class who very unexpectedly, it's the first time I've ever seen it, got a hole. They wore a hole in their fish skin. Now, do I know why I did that? I mean, it could have been the tool. It could have been that they went really hard. It could have been that there was just a natural weak point in the skin. So it does happen, right? But sometimes it's just inevitable. You're not going to prevent it every time, right? So the other thing is these skins were frozen, and so I gave them a salt bath. And as I thought about it, I was like, why is in the world does this lady in this book that I read want me to do a salt bath? And I realized, well, it speeds up the defrosting process. I'm like, oh, that's why she wants to do it. It probably doesn't have anything to do with preservation. Probably just has everything to do with, you know, speeding the process along. I mean, it's a long enough process as it is. Okay, I'm going to stop there. So, you can see, though, there's still quite a bit of fibrous stuff. I might go back and get more. Okay, but I'm going to move on to the next one. So this is a salmon skin, right? So first I'm going to flesh this. And I'm really going to go after it. Guess I could feed that to somebody's dog or cat or something. Certainly wouldn't eat it at this point. I guess there's some people who would, though. I don't know how long they left it out, though. So, you get it from the sushi place. Sometimes you just don't know what you're getting. So, the other thing is, you are going to smell like fish. And so, just expect it. You're going to have to bleach everything, including the clamshell on cleanup, to get rid of the fish smell. I prefer bleach and just like a little bit of bleach water and just let it soak for like an hour. And then they don't smell like fish anymore. But I promise, after I taught my class, it was like, my friends were like, oh my gosh, she smells so much like fish. My friend invited me over today, and I was like, okay, but I'm going to be working on fish skins, so I'm probably going to smell fishy. And she was kind of like, maybe not. Oh, it's so funny. Okay, so you would think that you're done, right, at this point. I would probably go a little further on these, but I'm just more curious with these. I don't know if those are really big enough to do anything functional with unless I sew them together. But you never know, and I'm really curious about that skin. So I'm going to really work this. And the thing that you want to work is the ends. Okay. So, you know, just go for a while. Gotta get down to that. Down there. Yep, I'm starting to see that fibrous layer. You see this? You start to see this little layer right here. That's what you want to see. Start to see like see, now I'm gonna rip that skin if I'm not careful. That's what's gonna get tanned. When you're tanning it, you're gonna get these fibers, these little fibers like right here, shortened as you tan. Wish I had a pair of scissors. What did I do with my scissors? And because I don't want this to rip, I'd rather cut this off than have it continue to rip. See this little end right here? If I keep pulling on it, it's gonna be like a stocking. It's gonna rip, and you'd rather just kind of cut it off than have it catch and keep moving. Now, I still will have to be careful, but it won't be quite as bad. Okay. love this clamshell. I can just really dig into it. See all that? You're just taking it off, and I feel like it's going to be... So the other thing I was thinking about the other day when I was teaching this class is I was thinking to myself, you know, it would be softer, but it's going to be thinner. So maybe you might not like that. Maybe you would like it to be thicker. Like if you were going to make a shoe, you'd probably want it to be thick rather than soft. So there's always trade-offs. So I'm going to stop at this point on this skin. Okay, salmon skin. This is the back. And now I'm going to scale it. I forgot I got to go against the grain here. And usually they say start at the tail and move forward. So I'm spreading this out. I'm guessing that that one end is the tail. And I'm going to scrape forward. Trying to get the scales off. See all those scales? And sometimes what I've noticed is on certain fish, the scales are really, really small. And like, for example, I think it was the halibut when I did it. It didn't really come off. I didn't even notice the scales until during the tanning process. Now, you can tan the skin with scales on, right? But it's going to be uneven. It will be. Now that might not matter to you. You might like that look. I think it's important to remember that there is an art to this, and different looks might be more appealing to you, even if it's non-conventional. And you know, I always feel like that's okay. It doesn't have to look like everybody else's skin. It needs to look how you want it to look for whatever it is you're making. Now, if you're just doing it so that you can sell it and you're wanting consistency, then I think, yeah, okay, it matters. Probably matters more than the other way. I love this. This looks kind of like speckly. Well, now I'm starting to wonder. Nope, this was salmon. It just doesn't entirely look like salmon, right? So get all those scales off. Okay, so you're going to keep going. I feel like I've gotten the scales off, right? I'm going to come back. Oh no, I might not have gotten them all. I feel like I'm not getting scales, I'm just getting other stuff. So it's fine to do whatever you got to do to get the scales off. Okay. Yeah, I feel like I'm still getting some. Okay. So that's pretty good right there. Pretty good. I could probably keep scraping on this, though. I mean, I kind of feel like I could get a little deeper. I saw this one guy in the class. He just kept going, and it was like great. He did it when it was smooth, you know, and he just tried to get it going. So see how you can use this too. I feel like the smaller ones. Ooh, I'm getting fish yucky on me. Fish yucky on my apron and on my pants, which is expected, right? Okay, so we go down. We keep going, digging it out. And that's how you kind of flesh it. And you just keep going. I feel like this one was so easy though. But I feel like I could keep going. You know? Because the more I get off, the softer this skin's going to be. And I saw somebody with an amazing skin in the class. I was like, wow. I love it when my students exceed me. Because it's like, you know that you've passed this tradition along. And the leather industry really has suffered because for many years this was extremely secretive, right? The leather industry. And so, you know, I feel like it's really awesome when we can pass these skills along. And it's not like your particular skin is not going to be unique to you, right? It's going to be unique to you because you might use a slightly different technique than someone else. And, you know, that's how we create competition and stuff like that. It's not by keeping things to where nobody can do the process, but maybe somebody else does that process just a little bit better. Like I saw a guy in the class and he did this process better than me. And I was like, that's cool. You know, I kind of believe in competition. So I wouldn't say that I'm 100% capitalist, but I would say that I do believe competition is good for people and good for organizations on many levels because it makes people work at becoming better, which I think is good. Okay, so whatever. Okay, so there's that. A nice little look at that. I think I could even go deeper. Just be careful because you could put a hole in it. Okay, so there's that. I fleshed that little salmon skin and whatever that little carp thing, whatever that was. I should probably ask them, but I don't want to like bother them to label things, right? And in the book that I will show you later, it's like she's from Scandinavia, so like the fish that she's encountering, I don't even know that I've ever heard of or seen. So anyway, guessing at what I'm working with. But okay, so I'm going to show you this little tanning solution. So there's lots of things that you can do, but you want tannins, right? So when I first took this class, it was like out in the bush, meaning in a semi-remote location and along a river. And we harvested willow, and then we took the skin off the willow with our pocket knives, and then we put it in a tea, and then we cooked it, right? And you just keep adding more and keep adding more and keep adding more until it gets dark. Willow is an awesome thing to dye with because it turns things kind of like almost like a red color. For some reason, I felt like it was communicated that I couldn't really use. He was skeptical as to whether or not I could do black tea, and his last name was Pixie, by the way. I don't know why I can't remember his first name. It's so terrible. But I can't remember my teacher's first name. But his last name was Pixie. He was a gypsy. He was a really cool guy. I mean, just so stable and very grounded. Very, very, very cool, right? Living out of his little gypsy van and traveling and making his honey mead and just had found a life for himself that was beautiful. Okay. So he was skeptical as to whether or not I could do black tea. So when I got home, I was like, whew, all that willow and stripping all the willow is a lot of work. But I really wanted to do fish leather because I felt like the other part of the process was easier on my body than doing brain tanning, which is what you do to tan like a mammal, because every mammal has enough fat in their brain to tan the entire body. So you can actually, the entire body's skin, right? So you can do brain tanning, which is a topic for a completely different course. But it was, when I took that class and I did those, it was so hard on my body, right? And I'm not a bush hippie. I live in a house and I have a regular job. So I am not physically used to that kind of labor, right? So I wanted to be a little lazy. And I found that I was like, I'm going to do black tea. So I went out and bought black tea. I made it up, and I had a great great experience with that, right? So, the solution that you're seeing before you, and I will show you a skin that I did with this solution, is made of black tea, willow bark, and somewhere in the process we had a medicine man, person I consider a medicine man who's into plants and all kinds of stuff. He was going to make one of the skins, and he felt like it would be good to put sage in it. So we did sage because sage has tannin too. And it really came out beautiful. So this is the solution. It's left over from that, and it's been actually, so as you can see, it's just like a tea. Now this has been an unused solution. This was the last round of that conglomerate of plants. But you could use acorns, right? Acorns have tannins in them. All kinds of things have tannins, right? So I feel like that it depends on what kind of color you want. It depends on what kind of aspects you want to the skin. I personally love the kind of redness of willow, and I love it. Oh my gosh. When we boiled the willow in the sage, it was white sage. Oh my gosh, my house just smelled wonderful, right? So I'm going to show you the skin that came of that solution. Okay, so this is one of the skins that came from my last fish leather class. I believe this was halibut, right? So this was originally a black skin, like the big freaking monster over there that I am going to do, not on the video. And it's really soft. It does not smell, oh my gosh, it smells so good. It smells like willow and sage. Oh my gosh, it's just wonderful. It's wonderful, right? So I love this. Honestly, I've already committed to giving this to somebody, but if I could keep it, I would. So anyway, but I'm honored to give it to him because he's a dear friend of mine, and he's such a great soul, and he's done so much for so many people. It's a love gift. So anyway, so love this skin, and it's really tough, right? And shark skin is even tougher, right? My nephew, who is into bees and all kinds of stuff, tanned a shark skin with me, and he was like, this stuff is tough as nails, right? We're grinding the shark skin during the softening process on lava rocks on a river in Yellowstone, right? Or near Yellowstone. And it's just like enduring the torture, right? Shark skin is crazy tough, right? And when you're doing it, you're getting like exfoliated skin, okay? So anyway, that being said, we're gonna go back over here. This is the salmon skin, right, that we just fleshed together. And what you're gonna do, and this is really easy, and this is the part I love, because I'm a lazy human, right, is you're going to take this little skin, and that's it. You're gonna put it, actually it's not entirely it. So you're gonna take it in here, and you're gonna put it in the thing, into the bark tan, which is what we essentially are gonna call it. And and you can use birch bark. Birch bark's the other plant you can use too. When I harvest willow, I am very conscientious of the plant. I do not chop down the whole plant. I chop down a portion of the plant so I know that plant is going to be able to produce. Pruning is good for plants, but if you take too much, the plant can no longer do photosynthesis, and you kill the plant, and that sort of like defeats the purpose of you doing this project, right? Because you're never going to be able to go back to that same spot and get more, which is, if you're going to take this up, something you want to do, right? So, and also it's just highly inconsiderate, in my opinion. Okay, so you're going to take your skin. You have the other two little cute, and I love this. Oh, this is so pretty. So pretty. Okay, so you're going to plop it in there. Okay, so you're going to, this is really important. Fish skin, if it gets over 20 degrees Celsius, will turn into gelatin, and your project will be no more. And I don't care what, you just cannot let this get hot, okay? You have to keep it cool. That is the key to fish skin. Really big, 20 degrees Celsius. Do not go above that. And I believe I calculated that to like 68 degrees Fahrenheit, but double check my math because it wasn't in high school my greatest. I'm not sure that I calculated that right, but 20 degrees Celsius, no higher, right? So literally you have to make the tea and then you have to let it cool. You can't put ice in it, right? But it'll kind of like dilute the tea. So I just use one of these like little candy thermometers, this little guy right here, and I just stick it in there and I test it and make sure. Pretty sure this is not gonna be too hot because it's been sitting in my closet. So this is the great part. Like if in the first part of the process, if you just make the tea and you set it aside and you haven't used it for any fish skin, it can sit there for quite a while and it's not gonna get yucky or smelly. But once you've added these skins, within 24 hours, you're gonna have to change the solution or add more to the solution, right? And it's gonna get gross. I promise you that first round, it's gonna smell fishy and it's gonna be gross. So it's not like you just make one round of tea. You're gonna make multiple rounds of tea. And it's gonna take about a week, 7 to 10 days is what they say, right? And so you're gonna watch it and turn it. You have to turn it at least once a day. And if it even looks like it's starting to get mold on it, you have to completely change the tea and do it again, right? So during this whole week, I'll be like making tea, like tonight I'll make tea and then I'll change the process out. And then by the end of the week, when rabbit stick comes, then I will have fish leather. At least fish leather to soften, because then you'll have to do the softening process. And that's a whole another round of stuff. So anyway, but this is the greatest part for me because it's so easy, right? It's just easy. To me, this is easy. I'm just like, do this, put it in there, and let it go, right? The softening phase is not easy, right? So that takes energy. I think I worked off some flesh from my hand when I was softening the last skin. But the great part is, when you go through the softening process, you can just kind of like go out in the bush with your olive oil and just soften it over like a log or a rock or right along a river. And it's when it's sort of like meditative, contemplative, beautiful, and I love doing it by rivers and streams and in lakes because it's so serene that it just sort of like it feels like you're returning it. You're working it in the place that it belongs. Oh, can't believe this. Okay, so anyway, so I'm going to put this in here and I'm going to let it soak. I'm going to go flesh some more hides and we'll see you on the flip side. So I will do the softening process in about a week. That's going to be so cool. So stay tuned, fish skin lovers. This is going to be awesome.